In this video, I want to talk about how to deal with grief, but I want to talk about how to deal with it long term and to tell you how I do that, basically. Hi, my name's Christine L. Conroy. Welcome back to Happy Stuff and Fluff. It's been a while and I've missed you. And I have to say that today's video is not the one that I had intended to come back with. However, obviously, as you can see from behind, I'm going to be talking about Queen Elizabeth's funeral and how that kind of relates to what we're talking about, in as much as obviously the tragic death of Queen Elizabeth has hit us all very hard in the UK. And the thing about what most people said was, even though obviously at her age we all expected it was going to happen soon, nevertheless it was such a shock when it happened. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the funeral, about Queen Elizabeth's funeral, but more about how it's affected people, certainly in my circle and the ladies that I've been speaking to. And most of us, me included, on the day of the funeral were glued to the TV. If indeed we hadn't managed to get down to London, were glued to the TV for 8 hours. And during that time, of course, what it did was to remind you of your own loss and the funerals of people that you've lost and loved. And lots of people said that that's what this did for them. And whilst they may have been actually crying tears for Queen Elizabeth, they were also expressing their own grief from people that they had lost. And I find this quite interesting, that such mass sadness like this, a mass expression of sadness, also relates to the personal. And it certainly did for me. I'm 3 years down the line in terms of grieving, if you like. It's 3 years ago since my daughter Charlotte died with cancer. And I've talked about grief before, and I'd like you to go back. I'll leave a link to one of the videos down below if you are dealing with grief. Now, perhaps some of what I have to say would not be suitable for you if your grief is fresh and you are going through what's called the acute stage of grief. But for the rest of you who may be 12 months down the line, and of course it never goes away, I don't think we ever overcome our grief. We learn to work through it, I guess. I mean, obviously it's something that we all suffer. We all have to go through it at some point, and sometimes many times, which doesn't actually make it any better, of course. It is a natural part of life, and it's something that we have to try to integrate the reality of the loss into our lives moving forward. And this is, I suppose, what I want to talk about in terms of the things that I've done. Now, if you look, you can't see, if you look, there's a picture of the gun carriage with the coffin of Queen Elizabeth on it. Looking at the history and the pageantry and the ceremony of the funeral, it was so symbolic and historical. Now, I couldn't even pretend to tell you all about that. I'm sure if you go on to Google the significance of all the things that you can see here, from the uniforms to the flowers, there is something symbolic in everything, and this is one of the things that I was absolutely in awe of the funeral. And that's what I want to talk about, because funnily enough, one of the things that gets me through 3 years down the line is the fact that we have kind of created these rituals of continuity, or rituals of commemoration, if you like, that help us to bring some kind of sense and meaning to Charlotte's passing, but that also allows me to understand that she is still a huge part of my life, and to keep her as a huge part of my life. Now, please tell me in the comments box below if you think I'm talking gibberish Or if you have suffered loss and you've done any of these things too, please tell me that, because it would help me to know I'm not the only one, but also would help others who are watching. So rituals of continuity then, let's say, things that establish that your lost loved one is still a part of your life, and to commemorate them and honour them. Little things, obviously nothing on the scale of Queen Elizabeth's funeral. Little things I'm talking about, like lighting a candle. There is and I can't play it and I can't sing it, copyright reasons, but there is a song by Pink that we actually played at my daughter's funeral, and she talks about lighting a candle in that song. Whenever I'm thinking about Charlotte or feeling particularly upset about it, I light a candle. It makes me feel closer to her. Charlotte and I went to London on her birthday to our favourite restaurant, and she always liked to eat oysters and drink champagne. We've made that a tradition now in our family. On her birthday, we go to the restaurant and we eat oysters and we drink champagne in her honour. This really helps me. There are quite a few other things that I do. For example, at Christmas time coming up, where it's obviously more stressful for people at Christmas time, but you can integrate things that help you to feel closer to your loved one. So, for example, the Christmas tree, I've shown you, and I will be showing you, not in this video, where I decorate the tree with some of Charlotte's treasured things that I've kept, and they now go into the tree at Christmas time so that she's a part of that tradition. I also, when we set the table, where I don't actually set a place for her at the table, I do leave space, and I leave a flower there or a candle there so that she's part of us and with us at our Christmas meal. Now, these are all obviously small things, but a major thing that actually helped me. When Charlotte died, just after Charlotte died, in fact, I found myself looking at my sister's things too, because my sister also passed away, and I found a map in there of the position of my grandfather and grandmother's gravestone, both buried together. I didn't know where. And then I found this map. So, of course, that immediately I wanted to go and find the gravestone of my maternal grandfather and grandmother. And so off we went one day and spent eons time walking around this graveyard, despite the fact that we had a map, to find my grandparents' gravestone. I can't tell you, when we found that stone, the emotions that I felt. I met my grandfather. He died, I think, when I was around about 9. I didn't meet my grandmother. Seeing their gravestone had such an emotional effect on me. And then when I got back home, I was trying to analyse that as I would. What is it about actually just seeing the stone that gave me that sense of the past, sense of history, and a sense of belonging? And I think this is something that we all felt at the weekend at Queen Elizabeth's funeral. Obviously, a great sense of history, a sense of feeling, this is who I am, this is a part of me, this history of this country is who I am. And equally, when I saw my grandparents' gravestone, I felt that too. Consequently, I started to look into my family tree, to look at my ancestors and to find them. And this also, and to place Charlotte in her position in our family tree, and my sister gave me such a great sense of satisfaction and a healing of an emotion that I didn't even know that I was struggling with or that I was hungry for. But it really helped me. Now, I'm telling you these things. I am not a grief counsellor, despite the fact that I've helped quite a few people, with their grief. I'm not what you would call a professional grief counsellor by any means. What I wanted to talk to you today is just about the things that I've done and how I felt the connection with the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, and how I brought that to the personal, and how I've talked about that, the idea of the pomp and the ceremony and the display of history and symbolism and significance. You can create that around the person you have lost. Even years down the line, you can create those things, not the pomp and ceremony, of course, not all of those things, as I say. You can bring it down to the things that give you meaning and that give you a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging, and that your loved one is still a part of your life. Okay, I do hope that's helped you. I felt the urge, the need to do this, obviously after the dear Queen Elizabeth's tragic passing, and just so that you know, I started to cry the minute I started to watch and didn't stop until the end. What particularly got me, if you'd be interested to know, is the Lone Piper. I was kind of just tears falling out until then, and that really brought it to the fore. I have to say, had they played Amazing Grace at any time, it would have finished me off for months. However, I thought it was incredible, and I wanted to explain how, and the reactions that I had to that, and I know that other people did, because they came to me wondering why it made them feel the way they did. As I say, I hope that helps. Next time I'm going to be talking about what I've been doing while I've been away, and until then, stay well, and remember that on the Happy Stuff and Fluff, we're getting happy, living longer and growing younger. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.